1,000 thanks to Mother Mary and the Holy Son. We are a family living in Melbourne for the past 20 years. My name is Kurian. My wife is Svapna. Our eldest daughter is Nella. Second daughter is Bella, and the third one is Ella. This is George. We are here to share a testimony about how our second daughter, Bella, had a cardiac arrest and then a brain impact, and how, through the intercession of Mother Mary to Holy Son, she was healed. A thousand thanks to Mother Mary and the Holy Son for giving us this opportunity to stand here at this holy altar. On October 17, 2023, at around 1 a.m., my daughter, who was sleeping at night, fell from the bed to the floor. It was a cardiac arrest. We didn't know what had happened. When we went near her and called her, she was almost in a dead condition. There was only a faint heartbeat. That was the situation. Immediately, we started giving CPR as best as we knew. The child showed no movement. Her lips were turning pale white. Right then, we called the ambulance. The ambulance staff instructed us to continue CPR, but it didn't help. Then, 4 ambulances arrived, 2 emergency ambulances and 2 intensive care ambulances. All of them together gave CPR to the child for about 1.5 hours. In the end, after 1.5 hours, they said they didn't see any major improvement. With only a faint heartbeat, they decided to take her to RCH, one of the biggest children's hospitals in the Southern Hemisphere. They told me that I should come along to say the last goodbye to my daughter. I said I wouldn't come, but they insisted that I had to come to say goodbye. I was then about 8 months pregnant. I couldn't accept this at all because among all of us at home, she was the healthiest child. Even when everyone got a fever, she never got one. When everyone caught chickenpox, she didn't. For such a child to suddenly have a cardiac arrest and be in that condition, it was impossible to believe. My husband went with the ambulance commander to the hospital. When they reached there, the doctors said that Bella's chances of survival were very low. They performed open heart surgery on her and connected her to a machine called ECMO, something we had never even heard of before. Through that, and with the ventilator, her life was being sustained. They said they would keep her like that for 72 hours, and only after that would they know whether she could be saved or not, and in what condition she might be. The next day, I went to the hospital with my other children to see her. She looked like a lifeless child, her body covered in tubes everywhere. We are a family that prays well, but we had only heard about Kreupasanam. We had never taken any covenant or made any such commitment there. That's when 2 priests came to the ICU to administer the anointing of the sick, last rites. Along with them came a few trustees and leaders from our church. One of them handed me a bag containing the covenant items and papers. I couldn't even understand what it was at that time because of the situation we were in. I just kept it there. In the ICU itself. That bag was given to me by my friend Ramya, who had earlier come here and shared her testimony. Ramya called me the next day and asked, "Have you started using the covenant items? You must use them." Following Ramya's instructions, I began to anoint my child's forehead with the blessed oil and apply the blessed salt, doing all those things. After that, Ramya herself came to see me and told me even more things. She took the rosary from her own neck and put it on mine, even giving me with the covenant medal. We started praying the apparition prayer and used the blessed candle and all. However, we didn't take the covenant yet. We were doubtful how could we follow all the conditions mentioned in it in our current situation? Could we even go for confession every 2 weeks? We weren't sure. Then one day, a large team of doctors called us and said that all of our child's They said brain damage had occurred, all the cells were damaged. You may get your child back, they said, but she will have no abilities. She will remain completely disabled. She won't be able to hear. She won't respond. She will have to live her whole life supported by tubes. That was the situation they described. We can't even fully express here what we went through at that time. I was fully pregnant then, and with our other children to take care of. I truly don't know how we made it through those days. But one thing I can say is this: when we began using all the covenant items, even though our minds were breaking down completely, we started feeling a strange strength within us. Still, there were moments when, humanly, we would grow weak and lose hope. During that time, the doctors decided to remove Bella from the ECMO machine. After removing her from ECMO, she stayed in the ICU for 2 more weeks. But still, there was no change, no brain functions at all. Then she was moved to the cardiology ward. It was there that we began to see what brain damage really meant. The child would suddenly slide off the bed, as if falling. She would move like a snake, twisting on the floor, lying on the bed and writhing. It was because the muscles in her body from her head to her toes would tighten violently every few minutes. Pain was so intense that she would rub her hands, legs, and jaw against the bed, until blood stains appeared all over it. In that state, we continued praying, constantly reciting the apparition prayer and pleading with Mother Mary. Even though we hadn't yet taken the covenant, we prayed, "Mother, please help the doctors find the right combination of medicines for our child. Only then will she find some healing or relief from this terrible pain." We prayed that somehow, through a divine intervention, the doctors would be able to find the correct mixture of medicines for our child. The doctors who were treating her were among the most experienced, a team of senior consultants, many around 70 years old. They continued monitoring her closely. After 2 or 3 days, or rather, after about a week, they finally said they had found the right combination of medicines for Bella. However, even with that, there were no visible improvements. Her life was just being sustained, nothing more. After about 1.5 weeks, Kurian said, "There is no hope anywhere. None of the doctors are speaking positively." So Kurian decided to take the online covenant. I couldn't do it because I was pregnant and fasting was required, which wasn't possible for me at that time. So Kurian took the covenant online. Around that same time, another complication arose. The area of her chest that had been operated on became severely infected. Pus was oozing out as though her whole body was soaked. One day, even the clothes she was wearing became completely wet and stuck to her body because of the discharge. The doctors came and said there was absolutely no chance for recovery. There were still a few surgeries pending, but they said there was no point in doing them because it would make no difference. Bella was almost gone. They told us there was nothing more that could be done for her. But even as all this was happening, because Korean had taken the online covenant, we began to feel a new strength. In our hearts a courage that came only through faith. We started believing firmly that miracles could happen only through prayer. We would sit beside her, constantly listening to the covenant reflections and talks from Kreupasanam, just as Father always says. We began listening to the covenant talks right beside the child's bed. One day, during the time when the pus infection was at its worst, the doctors took her to the operation theater to clean out the pus. As I sat there praying the rosary, I suddenly began to smell a beautiful fragrance. It was so strong and sweet. I had my younger daughter, who was 3 and a half years old, with me at that time. At first, I thought it was just my imagination, maybe a mental feeling because of what Father always says about divine fragrance. But then my little girl asked me, "Mummy, what's that beautiful smell?" That's when I realized this was real. Something miraculous was about to happen. Even if there was no hope, I believed that somehow, our daughter would regain something, maybe even her sight. Her jawbone was broken, saliva constantly flowed from her mouth, and every 1.5 minutes, we had to suction it out. Otherwise, her eyes would bulge, and she would go into severe distress. People who came to see our child would visit once and never return. The situation was that horrifying. It was unbearable for anyone to stand there and look at her. Her condition was that bad. As time passed, the skin beneath her eyes turned dark, and her face looked completely different. Yet, we continued to pray with unwavering faith. Many people called us to give emotional support, saying, "Don't lose hope." It felt as though Mother Mary had arranged a host of angels around us, people who kept calling and praying with us. One sister told me, "Read the Holy Scripture as Father says, not just for half an hour, but for 1 or 2 hours. There's nothing else we can do now." So we continued praying the Rosary faithfully. Another sister called and said, "Dear, sit and read chapters 8 and 9 of the Gospel of Saint Matthew. They are full of Jesus' healings." We began reading them continuously again and again. One day, while listening to Father's talk, he said, "There is a child whose jaw has completely broken, and Mother Mary is healing that child." At that exact moment, I felt it was meant for us, because Bella's jaw was exactly like that, bruised and torn. Around that time, my mother came here to receive the covenant items for us, because I couldn't travel. She took the covenant and handed all the blessed items to my brother to send them to us. At that time, my mother and I were listening to the same talk. As soon as I heard it, my mother's call came. She said that Father mentioned something about our child. I asked, could it really be about our child? Will such a great healing happen in this condition? Then my mother said, we must believe what Father says. Only if we believe will improvements happen. And we believed and prayed like that. After that, my sister called and said, there's nothing else to do now. Try showing Bella some of her old videos. One side, her entire left side, was completely paralyzed. The right side also was slowly starting to weaken. Her hands were bent like rods, twisted so much that if straightened, they would break. Her fingers were shriveled like dried flowers. It was as if she was dead. But even saying she had died and gone to Jesus would have been easier. This was far worse. Even in that condition, we continued praying with faith, just as my mother said. We used the covenant articles all the time whenever we washed or touched her body. We applied salt and other things. Only honey couldn't be given because a tube had been inserted through her nose, so her tongue couldn't be touched. But for everything else, we prayed and applied the covenant items with faith. During that time, Remiah called me. I told her, I have dedicated the child to Mother Mary's feast next year, during the 8-day novena. By then, if my child could just see, sit upright, and be taken in a wheelchair, that would be enough for me. Then Remiah told me, don't say that. She herself had taken the covenant here. Remy said, no, Mother Mary will heal her completely. She will become perfectly fine and come back as a bright, intelligent child. That's what she said. Then, while all this was going on, she slowly began to smile. We started seeing a lot of improvement. She told us to pray specifically for December 25th. On December 25th, even the doctors were astonished she had become almost completely normal. She even started speaking small words. But they said she still needed tube feeding. They told us that the tube in her nose should be removed and instead inserted through the stomach. We were very frightened and prayed that even that should not be necessary. Her legs were still without any movement. They just hung down helplessly. Still, we thought, even if it's only in a wheelchair, at least we can take her out. The leg issue and the tube were our only remaining concerns. Then one day, those very same doctors who had earlier said there was no hope told us, let's try removing the tube and see if she can swallow a little thick liquid. She began to swallow. Then they tried giving her small amounts of fruit puree, and she was able to eat that too. Gradually, they completely removed the tube. After all that, we began taking her outside in a wheelchair. Meanwhile, a lot of medical things were happening in the background. Several medical teams were working continuously. But in everything, we remained in prayer, fully believing and faithfully following the apparition prayers and covenant prayers exactly as instructed. Our hospital had 2 chaplains who regularly brought the Holy Eucharist to our room. When they saw our faith and prayer, they supported us wholeheartedly. Whenever possible, we attended Holy Mass in church, otherwise, we watched it online. Every 2 weeks, we went to our parish church for confession. During this time, as I was pregnant, the doctors said that my unborn baby could also have a condition called arrhythmia. So, frequent ECGs and echocardiograms were being done for that baby as well. The only problem was that the hospital where Bella was admitted was quite far from the hospital where I had to go for my own checkups. When she regained consciousness, I wanted to stay close to her at all times. After attending one of my appointments, which lasted about almost whole day, I asked if they could transfer me to a hospital within walking distance of her hospital. They said it was not possible at the moment because delivery was approaching. And it would be difficult to transfer me. Then my mother, who had taken the covenant here, said, your delivery will happen in that hospital itself. Everything will go very smoothly. At that time, I didn't have much faith. I thought, Mother says these things, but nothing like that will happen. She won't do anything now, right? One morning, while sitting with her in her room, I suddenly felt labor pains. I was about 8.5 months pregnant when the pain started. At first, I didn't even realize what was happening. The pain continued until around 9 o'clock. A midwife from the hospital came running and said, "This is labor pain due to pregnancy." Immediately, an ambulance arrived. They checked my condition and said I couldn't be taken to the hospital that was farther away, because I would give birth in the ambulance. So they took me to the nearby hospital, and my delivery happened there. The next day, I went to my daughter's side. She was in the NICU for a day, and then on the second day, my husband and I stayed with her for about 10 to 15 days at the hospital. We stayed with her continuously. I bathed her myself because the nurses couldn't do it after my delivery. For 2 days. After my delivery, my husband, our newborn, and I stayed on the floor with her. There were no issues with the bed. Despite having severe allergies and other complications, I had no problems staying there with her. I had chronic hernia, but even that caused no issues. Mother cared for us and looked after us. Similarly, we wondered if our daughter would be able to attend school and what her intellectual abilities would be. They didn't know anything about that. But after testing, they discharged her and planned for surgery a month later. Before, it wasn't possible for your daughter to do anything on her own. The surgeons said she wasn't capable because her body was too weak, and over the next 1 or 2 months they completed the procedures. After that month, meaning a month after discharge, she started going to school. Now she goes to school like any other child, returns home normally, without any problems, taking her medicines in small doses as prescribed by the doctors. This is a major miracle happening in that hospital. Such recoveries are featured in famous newspapers there, and our daughter's story also appeared in a famous newspaper. These features were displayed outside her room. That is, my room. Outside my room, no noise was allowed, and the inside was dark with curtains drawn, so that the light wouldn't disturb her. She was extremely sensitive to light, and even a little light would have caused her severe discomfort. That's why it was written outside her room. Written outside her room. From there, Mother arranged everything for her life to move forward. They had predicted that within 1 or 2 years, she wouldn't survive, but she returned completely normal to me. Even stronger and smarter than before. She is doing very well. We are immensely thankful to Mother and the Lord. The first thing I want to say is that I had no idea such merciful acts could happen. We all feel grief for mothers who lose children or for mothers whose children are sick. Such parents go through extreme suffering. This made us realize that whenever we meet such people, we should offer help, emotionally at least, and financially if possible, and wherever needed. We go to those who are struggling the most and share the message of Kreupasanam. I realized this wherever I went. Because of our daughter's travel restriction, we couldn't come earlier. Otherwise, I would have come to this sacred altar sooner to give testimony. Now that her travel restriction has been lifted, we were able to come for 2 weeks. When we arrived, we first entered from the airport. Then we bought some newspapers here, and at altar of Kreupasanam. We organized a Thanksgiving party with photos, and also combined it with son's baptism, giving newspapers to everyone who came. Since we are still there, we cannot give out newspapers now. But with my own tongue, I tell everyone I meet about the Kreupasanam. Even now, if I go shopping for a purchase, whoever I meet, I hold the covenant medal that Ramya placed on my neck that day, and I tell them about it. From now on, I have no other desire. My only wish is to raise my 4 children and my family as devotees of Mary. I am immensely thankful to Mother of Kreupasanam and the Lord for giving such a great physical healing to my daughter, and at the same time, giving immense mental strength to all of us while I was pregnant with Mon in the last trimester. Through this prayer of covenant, through faith statements, and through the use of the covenant objects, this courage maintained us in faith. For that, 1,000 thanks. Likewise, for being so much late, we offer an apology. As I mentioned, our travel restrictions prevented us from coming sooner. 1,000 thanks to Mother of Kreupasanam and the Holy Son.